All right, we've got a bunch of stuff to cover tonight. First, the former president of the United States is going to be sentenced for 34 felony convictions next week on Thursday. The prosecutors who brought that case and who prosecuted in court that case against Donald Trump, they were due today to make their sentencing recommendation to the judge. In a New York State case like this, it's not the jury that convicted Trump that will decide what his sentence is. It's the judge who oversaw the case. It's Judge Juan Merchan who will sentence Trump. The maximum sentence under law that Trump could face is 4 years in prison. It's very possible, however, that he might not get any prison time at all, or if he does get a sentence of confinement, it's possible it could be home confinement. We just don't know. On the one hand, what he's been convicted of, while it is 34 felonies, it's a nonviolent crime. And also, he's a first-time offender. He's never been convicted of anything before. Those would certainly cut against him getting any significant jail time. On the other hand, he does have 3 other major felony criminal cases pending against him at this moment. He was fined by this judge for multiple violations of the court order in this case that required him to restrain himself from speaking about jurors and witnesses and court staff and the families of the judge and the lawyers in this case. He's also shown absolutely no remorse whatsoever, which is the thing that judges are supposed to consider. So all of those factors serve as sort of aggravating context. Those might cut in favor of him getting jail time. Who knows? This is why a person with the job title judge makes a decision like this and not randos like you or me. Before the sentencing, the judge will get 3 pieces of advice, essentially, to help him make his decision. He will get a not public-facing, confidential recommendation on Trump's proposed sentence from the probation department. He will also get a sentencing recommendation from Trump's own lawyers, which presumably will be that he should get a cookie and a nice bag of treats because he's a good boy. And presumably he will also get the sentencing recommendation from prosecutors as well. There is no rule about whether or not the prosecutor's sentencing recommendation is made public, either before the sentencing or during the sentencing or after. That is all up to Judge Merchan as to whether he tells us what the prosecutors are asking for. But I can also tell you tonight that it is not totally clear when the judge is going to get that sentencing recommendation from prosecutors. It was due in today, but then something happened today. Immediately following today's seismic Supreme Court ruling on presidential immunity, Trump's lawyers advised the judge in the New York criminal case that they are going to ask him formally, they're going to file a motion asking him essentially to set aside Trump's guilty verdict, despite the jury's verdict in that case. After the Trump's lawyers notified the judge that they were going to ask him to set aside the verdict, prosecutors then didn't send in their sentencing recommendations as they had been expected to do. Now, as far as we know, the sentencing is still on. But there is an element of uncertainty now as to what kind of a hitch this might be in finishing up this criminal case in which Trump has already been convicted. We can report tonight that Trump's lawyers have asked that the sentencing itself be delayed. And we expect that Judge Merchan will consider delaying the sentence after he gets both that request from Trump's lawyers, but also after he hears from the prosecutors on that matter. Now that prosecutors have delayed submitting their sentencing recommendations, does that mean the sentencing itself will be delayed? Does that mean anything else material in terms of the sentence that Trump will likely face or when he will hear about it? We don't know. We are waiting to hear from Judge Merchan.
Hey there, MSNBC fans. I'm Luke Russert, and be sure to join me, Rachel Maddow, Jen Psaki, Lawrence O'Donnell, Steve Kornacki, Joy Reid, and many more September 7th in Brooklyn, MSNBC Live Democracy 2024. Click on the link for ticket information. We will see you there.